So this is, you obviously have made a great mark in Chicago. You love Chicago. It's been a great place, and you've had great success here. But you're not from Chicago, not even from a big city. Talk a little bit about back to the roots before you got into all those exciting companies, before you went to college at Bowling Green. Like, talk about your growing up. What were you like? What was your life like? What were the influences that helped shape who you are?
So, so I actually just mentioned this. I was adopted. Grew up on a farm until I was 6 years old. But I was adopted into a Mennonite family. So if anybody knows anything about Mennonites, I've got Amish cousins who don't have cars, and so it was as most conservative and disciplined background as I, which I think is great because I think DNA-wise, genetically, I'm a risk taker, and so having this massive risk taking on top of this very disciplined conservative family, I think has helped me.
The interesting thing is, our mutual friend Antonio Gracias, who's on the board, is the lead director of Tesla, likes to say that he's very close with Elon Musk, was an investor in all of his things, and he said, what's interesting is people think Elon's a risk taker. I think Elon was not born with the gene for being afraid of taking risk. Like, you just are wired differently in what you do, and because it takes nerves of steel to do some of these things when you roll with it. So you grow up there. You think about your experience, like when you were a kid growing up in a Mennonite home in Ohio.
Yeah.
What were the things that there's a long way from there to doing a tech media company in Chicago, living in the Trump Tower. Like, that's a pretty big change. What are the influences early that shaped you, that sent you on this trajectory?
I didn't realize this was going to be a psychology session. God, Jesus. I think I'm actually driven a lot by my insecurities. And growing up, I always say that I wasn't the smallest boy in the class. I was the smallest kid in the class. I was also the youngest kid in the class also. And so I think just that every kid has something they can hang their hat on. They're strong, powerful, smart, rich, cool. I was like zero. None of them applied to me. And I think that you develop a great sense of insecurity on wanting to be something more. And I think I had this inner risk-taking, and I've taken psychological exams, so I've got I score mildly high on the narcissistic scale. And narcissism, we believe that there's something special about us. We just need the world to see it. I kind of think that's what I wanted. So I actually think that
I could never take that because my wife saw it. She'd use it against me.
So for me, there's two things. So I think that there was always this sense of I want to change things. I will say this. When you experience pain a lot, you want to change it. You want to change your environment. And I think for me, the pain was very deep. And so my whole goal was, there's a terrible world. There should be a better world out there. And so I kind of said, I want to go and change things and improve life a lot. And I'm probably also, at the same point, I want to be and make a better world so that other people don't go through the same stuff I went through. I think it's connected to this idea of also probably some level of retribution for, just showing people that I was.
You weren't elected most likely to succeed. Those voters didn't know. They have a crystal ball. They got it all wrong.
You know what I was voted?
What?
I was voted junkiest car. There was actually a word. I got voted junkiest car and most desperate. That's what I got voted in high school.
Well, you showed them. You really showed them. That's for sure.
One thing I wanted to mention, because it comes back that you asked about role models.
Yeah.
I had zero role models. I didn't know anyone successful. I didn't know anyone rich. I didn't even I wasn't even in a smart family. No offense, mom and dad, but we just weren't. It wasn't that type of an environment for me. And so but I read, my role models were biographies. I've probably read over 75 biographies of people that I just absolutely love. And I'm going to plug one. Richard Branson's biography, Losing My Virginity, is the most amazing biography anyone.
It's interesting. So Richard Branson spoke to our YPO chapter. Real kudos to JB for bringing him in.
Yeah,
but
huge.
We were there, and afterwards, Shawn and I were having a drink and talking, and he said, he was great to have talk. He was fantastic. Really enjoyed him. But he said, you were basically so passionate about the biography, I went out and bought it. I mean, usually you hear someone speak and it'd be their talk that would get you to buy their biography. It was what you said.
Oh,
And I think that really it's powerful. I think
it's
those are great. I think that's exactly right. So let's shift gears for a minute. One of the questions, we take questions here electronically, and so a lot of questions, a lot of people voting for the same question, which is the name Centro, where did it come from? And are you concerned that not everyone knows how to pronounce it? As the guy who runs Incisive, I understand the second part.
Is that a real question? Centro? How else would someone say it? Centro?
It got 5 votes.
Actually, it's a funny piece of the story. I had wanted to build, the whole goal was to build a technology company, and I had read somewhere that, the more techie sounding of a name, because I'm going to go with you on Incisive, like, the more chances of success it is. Just go with me. There was more to it. But the first name of the company, but finding the name for the company that I could get behind was a hard deal. I remember, 3 days in, Red Bull, haven't slept, and I'm going, I got to start selling, I got to start building a company. And I couldn't find anything. So I was typing in my friend, and she said, what's important to you? And I said, integrity. So she types it into an English-French translation dictionary, and the word intégrant came back out. And I was like, integrant. That's a perfect name. I'll use integrant, okay? Worst freaking name ever. Everyone pronounced it integrant, indigent, ignorant. And so that was that was the name of the company for the first 4 years. And I was like, we got to change this name. I can't, this is terrible. And so we started out automating the local online industry. That was where we started. We said, if we could automate local, the rest of the world becomes easy. Centro is the Spanish word for local, or for downtown. The downtown area is Centro across the world in Spanish. And so I thought it was a really just cool name and something that was there. So that was
That's great.
Yeah.
So one of the things I love to talk about here at Founder Stories is the whole question around figuring out how to hit that value proposition that really allows you to take the market. And Mark Andreessen calls it product market fit. Talk a little bit about the original solution, particularly the software solution, how you did that. I mean, I think from our conversations about this in the past, I get the sense you were lean startup before lean startup became hip, before it even existed as a phrase. Talk a little bit about how you figured that out, how you did it, because I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how do they establish that real compelling value proposition and figure it out without having to spend $1 million. And you seem to do that really well. Tell me the story, if you would.
So I'm going to start actually with this concept of, for entrepreneurs, I think the greatest skill you can acquire is how to sell. I just think selling is like the one thing that will prevent you. It'll also make you bring on more. If you can sell, you can somehow find a way to create revenue while you're building the platform, and it'll help you retain ownership and equity, and it'll also help you give a bigger number for investors and keep them at bay a little longer. So I think I could sell at the time. So I had service business coming in that allowed me to fund my developers. Now, to me, engineers are very expensive. Building software can be very expensive unless you've got a technical co-founder, and I'm not a developer. So we had a phrase back then. It said, pain comes before process, and process comes before technology. So we actually built an elaborate Excel and Access-based system where we had 10,000 publishers in this Access database that we could actually get to. We built media plans in Excel that would actually link into other hidden Excel charts, and it would create documents off of it. So we had this whole system pretty much architected by the time we hired a development team. And then it was like, okay, we knew at a minute level exactly how the software needed to perform, so we could accurately explain it to them. And so we built it very lean and through.
It's interesting. You talked to Brad Keywell about what they do. He's a big believer. Brad Keywell, the co-founder of Groupon and MediaBank, Echo Global, Like Bank, all these ones. Yeah. He talks about how Groupon's original technology was built in FileMaker, the Apple product, which you can run on your laptop. And so I think it's interesting. There's a tendency for people to, well, I've got to get a technical co-founder. I got to do all these things. And so how much time did it take you to figure out what that right product was? And what was how did you do that? How did you interact with users, customers, prospective customers to do that?
Well, the good news is they had no idea because we didn't have an externally facing product. So to them, it looked. I'm obsessive compulsive about details, and things looked pristine every time they left the door. But the internal workings, was a lot more, bubblegum and rubber bands. But We lived on the Access and Excel product for 4 years before we started building the software from '02 to '05.